Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got Josh Yowie and Joe Bartnick alongside, and we've got an exciting guest this week. It's our first guest, and we'll have him here in a moment. It is none other than Kevin Stevens, Artie, the RT Express. But before we get into that, we did want to talk a little bit, just some somber news in the NHL world. Johnny Gaudreau passing, him and his brother, unfortunately in an accident, and I just got to say that I loved watching Johnny Gaudreau play hockey. Still, I remember whenever the Blue Jackets got him, I was like, why did Columbus get him? That still doesn't make sense to me, because they weren't really a team that was competing. But I was like, hey, he's in the division now, and I kind of love watching this guy play hockey. And he scored, to me, one of the prettiest goals scored against the Penguins in recent memory. The 2017, 16, 17, the cup year, the second of the two cup years, he scored a beautiful wraparound on Fleury. But yeah, R.I.P. Johnny Gaudreau. And you guys have any thoughts on him, covering him, watching him play?
Yeah, I mean, it still doesn't even feel real, to be honest. It happened 3 or 4 days ago, and I was numb that whole day when that news came out. I didn't cover him, but I dealt with him on a couple of occasions. Really nice guy. And I know people who covered him regularly. He's just one of those people, you don't hear a bad word about him. Just had a lot of positive energy about him. Great guy. And listen, it's a dark day for all of the NHL. I mean, this was a superstar, husband, father of 2 small children, was going to be in a sister's wedding last week. I mean, this is one of the most tragic stories I have ever heard of, and my heart goes out to the Gaudreau family. They seem like wonderful people, and no family should have to deal with what they're dealing with.
No, it's it's unbelievably horrible. A buddy of mine who grew up in New Jersey, he texted me the night that happened. He goes, "Hey, there's a thing, Johnny Hockey might have been hurt in a car wreck, but no one's confirming it." But he lives in Jersey, so he kind of knew the scuttlebutt. And I'm like, oh man, I was already sick to my stomach. Then I woke up, and literally the first thing I look at is the New York Post, and he was on the cover of the Post. And I mean, as bad as everything is for hockey, just 2 little kids not having a dad, it just makes you sick. And he was just fantastic. He was just a joy to watch play hockey. Yep. I mean, he was Johnny Hockey. When you think about it, Johnny Football was, a game day. Johnny Hockey is still playing hockey, and he was just a phenomenal player. When someone plays with that much enthusiasm, it just brings more people to the game, and it's just sickening, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he was so much fun to watch. One of my favorite players. I can still remember a conversation I had with Matt Murray. He said, "I hate playing against that guy. He always beats me to the short side. I have no damn idea what he's going to do anytime he has the puck. He's such a magician." He really was. And I thought it was cool that he went to Columbus. Like, a lot of people thought he was going to go back home to Philly. Mm-hmm. But he didn't. He went to the place nobody expected him to go to. And man, what a terrible couple of years it's been for that franchise. One tragedy after another. I was literally sick all weekend. All of us in the hockey community, we all have a little bond, right? When something happens, whether it's a player or somebody in the media, a big hockey fan, we all know each other because we all love the game. And for this to happen to a 31-year-old guy in the prime of his life, it's terrible.
Yeah. It made me think of, not similar situation, but just the way the hockey community comes together whenever the Humboldt tragedy happened, and everybody was posting pictures of their hockey sticks sitting outside with the lights on, saying, leaving it on. And that kind of had that same feeling to me, with Johnny Hockey. And so, yeah, it's a true shame. And Joe, like you said, just a joy to watch. Like, there's very few people that you enjoy watching score goals against your favorite team. And Johnny Hockey certainly is up there as one of them.
Well, I won't go that far, but anyone that goes against the Philadelphia Flyers, I have a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I know you would.
Yep.
And I'm a big nickname fan. When you have a great nickname, and Johnny, it doesn't get better than Johnny Hockey.
No.
And he lived up to it. It was actually a perfect nickname for him. There's just something cool about him, just the way he played, everything about him. So just just an unspeakably terrible story. There's no good in this story. I just, my heart goes out to those two young children, the two kids under 2 years old, and his wife. I mean, I can't even imagine what that's like. Just awful.
Yeah. R.I.P. Johnny Hockey. Way too soon.
Yeah.
And to move on to some different news, before we bring in Kevin, anything on the Western Front, or is it still quiet?
Everything's still quiet, and we're into September now. We're 16 days from training camp, so things continue to get a little nerve-wracking for everyone. And again, I think it'll get done, but we talk about it every week. We've done a good job. I should really thank Sid when I see him in a few weeks. Like, hey, thanks for giving us something to talk about all summer, Sid. You're as always helping the media out. We really appreciate it. Story keeps going on and on and on. And he'll be in Pittsburgh. In fact, he might be in town now. I haven't talked with him in a little while. Usually he comes in right around Labor Day. So it's time to get this taken care of. I still think, if you ask me if it gets done before camp, I'll say yes. I think so. But the longer it goes on, the more you naturally wonder.
Yep. And we shall wonder. We shall just sit here and wonder. But there is nothing to wonder about when it comes to your insurance, is there, Josh? Because we've got the Reg Dunlap of insurance on our side.
And Bill in the office is, by the way, a huge Kevin Stevens fan. So he was particularly excited about the news that the RT Express will be joining us. And as always, I have a little advertisement to read because he's not just a sponsor. He's our first sponsor, and he is indeed the Reg Dunlop of, I say, Western Pennsylvania in general, but especially of the insurance world. So little note that the Neofis Insurance Group has been assisting its members with their home insurance needs since 1960. That's the year Mavs won the World Series. Those people have been around for a long time, okay? They know what they're doing. Home, auto, motorcycle, RV, boat insurance for your business, life insurance, financial services, you name it, they got it. They've got access to multiple Fortune 100 insurance companies and decades of experience. The Neofis Insurance Group is there to help you at every stage of life, whether it's your car, apartment, your first home, expanding family, transitioning, downsizing, retirement. This group is there to navigate you through everything. These people, they're always working. Bill's always working. Every time I talk to him, he's working late. That's just how they are. So Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 6. Friday, 8:30 until 5. I read my writing, yes. And they also make up appointments on evenings and weekends if you need it. Give them a call. So 412-364-3388. 412-364-3388. NeofisInsurance.com if you want to do it that way too. So, Bill, appreciate your loyalty. You're the greatest sponsor ever.
Welcome into the show. I mean, it figures, of course, to have somebody that was familiar with getting two for talking to come on the Two for Talking show. The first guest. You were no stranger to the penalty box. Mr. Kevin Stevens joins the show. Kevin, thank you so much for coming. Let's give it a DVE class. Yeah, Kevin, you weren't shy. You weren't shy. You were in the box a time or two, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in the box. You could probably hear me on the press box too. That's the problem. I wasn't one of those guys that ever went quietly. I can tell you that much.
I think already Gino just passed you for most penalty minutes in Penguins history, but he played like 500 more games than you.
He played a lot more games. That was kind of sad when I see him pass with the penalty minutes. Yeah.
Not as many fives either.
Yeah, no, he had a lot of fives. Back when I was playing, you get the fives at the end. You get the fives, the game misconduct, and a 10-minute misconduct. So let's give you 25 quick minutes just to walk off the ice when you're losing 5-2. Who wants to be out there anyways, right?
That's all right. Well, listen, Artie, thanks so much for joining us. I got the first thing we like talking about early 90s Penguins. That's what we want to do. But I do real quick want to give you a chance just to talk about your foundation and powerforward25.com. What's going on this summer, and maybe just give everyone a quick rundown of what all you guys are doing.
Yeah, we had our second. You were at the first annual golf tournament we had last year. We had our second one last August 12th. So it went well. It was the same type of thing. We had a lot of the guys come, and the foundation is doing well. We're a group that we're trying to help people. I thought with the addiction stuff, when I was going through all that stuff, the hardest time was when you got out of treatment. Everybody, when you're in treatment, you're kind of locked in there, and everybody's pretty, secure and stuff like that. But when you got out, where do you go? Most most of the people didn't have, like, I had support and stuff like that. But a lot of people, when they get into treatment, they don't have anything, right? So they lose everything, and but we thought that the best thing was, what our foundation does, we give 6 weeks to housing for the people that come out of treatment. So, there's they're called sober houses out here in Boston. I don't know if they have too many in Pittsburgh. I don't think they do, but we have a lot of sober houses out here. That gives the guy or the girl the ability to go somewhere for 6 weeks, and we pay for them, and they kind of get their life on track. Then after the 6 weeks, they kind of move on and go wherever they got to go. But I just thought that was the hardest time for me when I got out of treatment. It was, the first 6 weeks. What's going to happen? What are you got to do? Life's got to change a little bit, and I think our foundation has helped a lot of people, and we've got dogs going into foundations now, and we're using like labs. We have, it's called the doer program, where dogs are going into treatment facilities, and it's just dogs are dogs, right? They're a comfort thing, and it kind of helps. It's been helping with these people in the treatment places. So that's what we do, and it's been good. My sister really does a lot of it, as you know, Josh. She's pretty big at this thing, and she's not even one of me. She's not an addict or anything. She just wanted to help, and she does an amazing job. She's an amazing job trying to help people, and she just kind of bought into this whole thing, and she's done an amazing job.
Your sister Kelly's the best adult I've ever met in my life. She's a much better adult than the rest of us. She's unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now if she wasn't kind of. Yeah, she's been great. She's a good girl.
Speaking of adults, I mean, when I was a kid and a teenager and a young man, if you would have told me I'd be able to speak to the great Kevin Stevens as an adult on the podcast, I would have lost my mind, because we had an episode a couple of weeks ago where we picked our favorite Penguins of all time. And Artie, you were right after Mount Rushmore.
That's pretty good. I know there's a couple of guys you have to pick. You got no choice, right? So if I can fall in behind those guys, it's I like you already, Joe. You're all right, kid.
The thing is, I have to call. I literally have to call you Mr. Stevens. The thing is that I was a kid who I cheered for the Penguins when they wore blue, not ironically. And then we get Mario, but you were the first man. We got an actual power forward that could score, that could kick ass, and I've just loved you ever since. You're why I still love power forwards, even though they're a dying breed right now in the NHL. It was just so much fun back then. What did you feel like when you came to Pittsburgh and you started playing with the big guy? Could you feel the momentum of the city? It was always a football town, but you're one of the main guys that turned it into a hockey town.
Yeah, it was a great city. I was so lucky to get to Pittsburgh. I obviously got traded from LA when I was in college, and EJ kind of traded for me where it was, I didn't even know much about Pittsburgh, but you could see when I was getting there, like when I got there, we had a lot of young, Recchi was coming in. There was a lot of guys. Koff was starting to come over. Then Barrasso came, and a lot of Joey. Then all these guys. Craig Patrick was an amazing GM. He did some stuff. Those early teams in the 90s. Those as much great teams, they're great guys. Josh will tell you, there's always not a lot of great guys all the time. I can tell you that much. He has to deal with a lot of different personalities. That 90s team, we had a couple that were, a little difficult to deal with, but for the most part, we had a great bunch of guys. That's the biggest thing. I remember the talent wise and the team wise, and the city just kind of took to us, which was amazing. It's an amazing city. It's an amazing sports city. And, we just kind of ran with it. We got hot there for a little while. It's just so much fun to be there. I'll tell you that much.
Artie, you played with Mario a good bit and obviously had a lot of success with him. I think there's, some people think, well, it's not that hard to play with a great player. You just go to the net and he finds you. I can't think it was that simple, though. Was it almost like intimidating playing with him at first? What was it like for you when you were young?
Yeah, it took me the first 2 years, Judge. I couldn't play with him, because he always wants the puck, so it's like, there could be 7, 8 guys on top of him, and he wants to stuff the puck into him somehow, So, until I got to know him and kind of like, we were friends and stuff like that, then I could, then we could kind of deal on like more personal relationships. But that team pushed each other to the max. We were all in it to win. We were all best friends, but we pushed each other. And we were, I played with Johnny Cullen and Rex there for a while. We lived together, and we were all on top of each each other all the time, you know. So, but Mario was, you know, once I learned, you know, what he wanted, like the puck all the time, then it was pretty easy to play with. You know, he's such a you know, you just give it to them. The good centermen, they want the puck in the neutral zone, right? Especially back in the old days where they didn't have all the traps and everything. So they want that puck in the neutral zone, then they'll get the blue line. And he said, you know, I'll just go to the net. And then by going to the net, the guys are going to come with me, right? Or if they don't come with me, they'll go to him and he can make the play, you know. So, but if they go with me, it gives him a little time, and that's all those guys want. They just want a little bit of time because there's not a lot of room out there for those guys when they skate. And but if you can open up the ice a little bit for them and give them that little extra time, they're pretty good with the puck. We all know that.
See, this all makes sense now because I was talking with your friend Rick Tocchet a couple of years ago. Rick's everybody's friend. We all love Rick Tocchet. Anybody who knows Toc loves him, right? And Toc told me, he said, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I said, what? He said, Mario didn't really like playing with Jagr that much. I said, what? He said, Jag's always cutting to the center of the ice. He said, Mario liked playing with me and Artie because we just went outside and took people with us right to the net and it gave him space, right?
Yeah, that was totally true. Mario wanted the puck like Jagr wants the puck, right? So they want to hog the puck, and they want in a good way, right? They want the puck on the stick, and it's not like, but they want to make plays, and they want the puck for the majority of the time. Like Toc and I, we don't want the puck unless it's, you know, in front of that crease so we can bang a rebound in or something. We don't want to even touch the puck if we don't have to. That's when we can shoot it and we can get to the net. And then, you know, when you play with great centermen, you know, I played, like I said, with Johnny Cullen. He was the same way. He always wanted the puck too, you know. So it was like these guys, Ronnie Francis, they all play the same way. Like they want the puck, and you know, they believe they can make plays, and they do. You know, and that was the best part about that team. We knew each other's roles, and no one really cared what role it was. You know, whatever we had to do to win, we won, and that was the biggest part of it. It was a great bunch of guys.
Those are some great teams, Artie. You know, but trades were a part of it. You know, I remember when we got Paul Coffey, it was like, oh my God, all of a sudden we got the doctor. But then, you know, we used to love John Cullen. He was one of your best friends.
Yeah.
And then we got Ronnie Francis. And then the year after, you know, one of our arch enemies, what did it feel like letting up with Tocchet then? All of a sudden, you know?
Yeah, that was crazy. It was funny how, you know, Toc was one of those guys that, you know, Toc turned him, you know, Toc when he first came in with Philly, he was on nothing but a fight. He was literally a fighter. He couldn't handle the puck. He couldn't do anything with that puck. He'll tell you that. He'll tell you that, you know. But when he worked himself so hard, he became a 45, 50 goal scorer and making plays, and you know, and he was still the toughest guy in the league. So when we got him, you know, obviously we had to trade Rex, and then when we got Ronnie Francis and Alfie, we had to trade Johnny Cullen, which two of my best friends, you know. But it's hard when it all happens, but you know, we're still best friends, so it doesn't really matter. If you're best friends with someone, usually, you know, with the hockey guys, you know, you're best friends forever, and that's win, lose, or draw. Those guys, you know, they're all my buddies, you know.
Oh, it crushed my grandmother to trade an Italian kid for a flyer.
That was tough.
Kevin, so trading John Cullen, I think Josh, you might have pointed this out a couple episodes ago when we were talking about 90s Penguins. Surprise. That John actually was in the stands for a lot of the 91 run. Did he spend a lot of time with you guys with the team, or did he kind of keep his distance and then, you know, join you after the run was over?
Yeah, he kept his distance a little bit. Johnny was one of those guys, but he, you know, obviously, you know, I was really good friends with him, so he stayed with us. You know, he stayed with me and Rex, and he was around. He didn't stay around all the time, but he would pop in, you know, here and there for playoff games, and he'd stay around. But he, you know, he was a big part of that team. You know, he got us to the point where we had to get. And then I think we were on a trip in Calgary. We lost like a 6th or 7th game in a row, and we came home, and then we knew something was going to happen, and then that trade happened, and you know, it hurts. It really does hurt, but I don't think we win without getting Ronnie Francis or Alfie. You know, Alfie was a guy that, you know, he's a different breed of an animal. You know, he played hard against all the tough. You know, he wasn't afraid to go after Neely. He wasn't afraid to go after guys that a lot of people wouldn't go at. You know, and I think that was a special quality about Alfie, was that he didn't care who if it was Gretzky, whoever it was. He'd go 100 miles an hour at him, and that's just played. And that a lot of guys won't do that, right? And then he battled, and he was one of those guys that really kind of. And Ronnie was just, you know, behind Mario. That's a perfect guy, right?
I'm friends with a lot of guys from Boston, and they still haven't forgiven Alfie.
Yeah, they blame Alfie for Neely. They blame that thing forever and ever and ever. And I remember the one time when Alfie lost his helmet, and Neely, his eyes lit up like 100 miles. You want to take out when Alfie's helmet comes off, the whole other team is like gearing up to jump off the bench to get a piece.
I remember one time in the late 90s on your second tour, someone bumped into Mario, and it was before they started really giving out majors for jumping off the bench. And I remember you led the cavalry. You remember that game?
Yeah, we had a lot of caliber. We had a lot of guys that kind of fall players. The good thing about it, if you were going, there was about 4 guys behind you, so it was all right. That was, there's no worries about guys jumping off the bench. We had some training. I could tell you about it. We had some training camps around it because it was crazy back in the day. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Back in the 80s, I know Tony Granado told me a story. He was in the Rangers camp one year, and they had to call the NYPD during a practice because there was a big brawl broke out. It's not like that anymore, of course. But
we had guys on the same line fighting each other. We go out. We'd have those scrimmage games at camps, and the fighters would be on the same team, and they square off with each other on the same team. I'm like, you guys are on the same team and the same line. And they're dropping the gloves with each other. It was chaos.
I remember Sid's rookie year going to camp and watching, and Dennis Bonvie started trying to mix it up with Sid in the corner, and Johnny Leclerc came over and gave him the no.
No, it's not. You gotta go up to the right guys. When anybody ever breathed on Mario at training camp, they had all those rock.
Artie, I've never asked you this. Most Penguins fans, if you ask them which team they hate the most, they're going to say the Flyers. Now, for me, I grew up in the early 90s, and I actually hated the Rangers the most just because of those wars you guys had against the Rangers. I'm curious, though, as a member, in the early 90s, was it the Flyers that got you guys up the most? Who was it?
Yeah, I you know what, Josh? It was anybody in the Islanders, too. Anybody in that Patrick division, right?
Yeah.
That division was so good. It was so insane. Every team, there wasn't and we used to always play a lot of back-to-backers, and Washington was another team that we used to have wars with. The Islanders had wars. I hated the Devils. I didn't like any of those teams. The Flyers, the Rangers. Where else is there anybody else? All those teams. Were all good, right? There wasn't any.
Yeah.
There wasn't any team that was. We always played Washington and Jersey, then the Islanders. Those teams are always good. There wasn't one team that we say, oh, I can't wait to get to the playoffs and play this team. They're all the same. They're all hard to beat. They're all big. They're all nasty, and it was good stuff. That Patrick division was awesome.
It absolutely was. There's nothing I love better than Patrick division hockey, and there's nothing I love more than power forwards. They're all my favorite players. Do you miss that in today's game, or do you enjoy the skill, or do you wish there was still a little bit more truculence, if you will?
Yeah, I do miss it a little bit. There's power. They call them power forwards, I guess, but it's just. John, you guys all know the game is played. Everybody fronts everybody now. No one plays. You can't play behind anybody because you can't cross-check him. You can't battle with them in front. No, there's no nothing. There's none of that. It's everybody. All these shots are getting blocked. You see all these shot blocks. If I got hit with a shot, it was by accident. I can tell you that. That's the absolute truth. You can, if that puck hit me coming in, I was in the wrong lane. It was kind of but now. Everybody blocks because everybody fronts everybody. Everybody has to front because you can't play behind anybody because you're not allowed to push them. You can't put your stick anywhere inside them. It's how many times did I break my nose after a goal went in? And I'm like, why did someone just cross-check me in the face? The red light was already on. Side of my head over here. And I'm like, what just happened? It's just, I think Danico did that 3 times. I think he did it 3 times to me in my career. Put my nose when I had to go into the train, grab the side of it, and the doc has to pull it over, and all you do is crack and it goes back into place. But it's kind of but I think he did. I know he did at least 2. He might have done it 3, and it seems like every time the goal is already in, he smashes it. And it was one of those things. I'm like, whoa, yeah, what's going on here? It's kind of but that was just what happened. If you stood around the front of the net, it was just a matter of time where. These guys just come over and they don't have to see what the puck is. They just take bodies,
Right. Artie, you've mentioned this a couple of times already, but I wanted to bring it up again. Just, it's been more than 30 years since you guys won those cups, and you guys are still so close. I will walk into the radio booth during an intermission to go see Borky, and Borky will say, just a minute, me and Artie, I'm texting Artie, we're bitching about some defenseman and something we just saw. Like, you guys, I mean, you're still so close with all those guys, and especially for you, what you've been through with your troubles off the ice, addiction, everything else. How much have all of those guys meant to you just as a support system and the friendship?
Awesome, gosh. All those guys. It's hard when you're stuck in addiction because you don't want to see all of them. You don't want to see people. You kind of hide, and you're one of those things that things aren't right because it's just the way it is. And addiction's a terrible thing, and when you're in it, it's you don't really see it like you should see it till you get out of it. But all those guys, I don't think I could call, if I didn't call one guy, even guys I really didn't hang out that much. It's just, they're all, when we had our thing last year or 2 years with Jagr's thing too, same thing, it was just like everybody came back and it's weird how that's happened, because I have a lot of friends on other teams, but I don't text them like I text the guys in Pittsburgh. It's weird,
Is there a big group chat with the 91, 92 Stanley Cup champs, or you guys are? That's just like my young childhood thing. I think oh, they're all best friends. That's great.
Yeah, it is. It's funny because even though you kind of you don't see guys, but when you see them, it's like you see them. You saw them yesterday. You might not see a guy for 25 years, and you see him tomorrow, and it's like, geez, I just felt like I was hanging out with him. So it's all. It's just weird. I don't know if it's because we won or and all that stuff helps when you win stuff together, but it's been I have a lot of good friends that have been there through thick and been great.
What I read up that you were a really good baseball player as well when you were a kid. What made you choose hockey, and how much you got to play in the Olympics, which got to be incredible? How much did 1980? I mean, because when I was a kid, it was the Penguins I said they were blue, and I liked the Islanders, I liked the Canadians, I just liked hockey. But 1980 was huge. Was it huge for you too, Kevin?
Yeah, 1980 was big. That was I was playing and stuff before, but that 1980 team, that was amazing what they did and how they beat that Russian team and how they got bombed the week before. Just the whole, and then they had to come back and beat Finland and Sweden and one of the next day. And the next day, that's even harder to do. When you win a game like that against the Russians, then you kind of come back the next afternoon and win, or 2 days, beat one of those Swedish or Finland team, one of those teams, and that. But it's just how that whole thing that did really help. And the Olympics was great, and it was one of those still we were still amateurs in 88 too, and we were trying to get hot to beat the Russians and the Czechs. They were all the same, but and we didn't get hot enough to beat them. You get the goaltender has to play great to beat those teams. But the 1980 team was huge. It was in baseball too. I would have played baseball if I didn't probably play hockey. The hockey season came. I went to BC to play hockey and baseball. I was going to try to play baseball, but our freshman season, we went in a little long, and the baseball season was like 10 games in. I'm like, I don't want to play baseball right now. How am I going to hit a baseball? If they're already 10 games in, I'm going to try. Well, it's probably the hardest thing to do in the world is trying to hit a baseball when you haven't swung in 8 months,
How many pitchers would you charge anyway? No one wants to see you charging the mound.
As long as they threw me a fast. I got to sit. Once they learn they weren't going to throw me a fast. When they get older, they can throw you breaking balls every pitch and sliders or whatever they throw. They don't have to bring you a fastball. That's when I know I can't play this game. It's too hard to hit a baseball. It's everybody, we all bitch and moan about baseball players sometimes, but it's hard to hit a baseball. I'll tell you that when it's coming 100, if it's going to dip, you don't know where it's going,
Artie, you mentioned the Czechs earlier, and you mentioned the Jagr event. And it was so good to see all of you guys in town for that back in February. What kind of a guy was Jagr? What kind of a teammate was he? I know he didn't speak a lot of English your first couple of years, but you were back again in your second stint in Pittsburgh. He was still there for that year. He's kind of a mysterious figure to a lot of people, but what was he like from your standpoint?
Yeah, he was Jagr's he's a really good guy. I guess you kind of got to know him a little bit. He's really, when he first came over, he didn't really think about being 18 years old. He dropped you over. Say when they dropped us over in Czechoslovakia, he didn't know any of the language, and he came with his mother, but his mother didn't know the language. So what was it? It was kind of, but it's just he was a good teammate. He was, he stuck to himself a little bit. Once Craig Patrick got he got a few checks when he got Herdine there. Then he got Straka, and he got and Robert Lang. He got some of these checks to come in and play with him. It opened his game up. It opened his life up. It just changed everything about him because, like I said, like he's over there by himself, and we're trying to help him, but trying to, you try to be the best guy you can to him and try to help him out a little bit, but it's hard, when you don't know the language, and we're all trying to do our thing, and you try to, include him in things. He doesn't know the language, doesn't want to go because he doesn't know the language. But once Craig that was probably one of the best things Craig ever did, was getting those checks in there to help him out, and I think really opened him up as a human being too. And he's a really good guy now. He knows the language. He's just a real solid guy.
Yeah. Speaking of the 91 season, Josh had brought this up before. Mario obviously was the captain, leader of the team, but you were very much the vocal leader. And in 91, you made one of the boldest predictions that my friend's dad still, to the end of his life, said that was the boldest prediction I ever heard in my life. Was that you said we went down 2-0 in the Garden, and you said we're gonna win 4 straight. Talk about that a little bit, and what was going through your mind? Were you like, I'm really doing this, and you felt it?
Yeah, I was. Well, we know what happened. With that game 2 in Boston, we were up 5-3, and then they get 2 goals. They get a 5-on-3 goal. Then it's 5-5, I think, and then it goes into overtime. And Ruzicka scored. I was kind of like right behind him, and he put the puck rolled over the goal by about 4 inches. And I'm like, oh my God, that puck just went in. And then the Garden goes crazy, and they're up 2 games down, and then. I was so mad after the game. I think it was. I think they reported. They always used to come to me for stupid quotes anyway. So they saw me breathing fire like you can't even breathe over there. They attacked me like right away. It's kind of like I said, I honestly thought I knew we were gonna win the series. I didn't know we were gonna win the next 4, but I knew we were gonna win the series. I knew they weren't gonna beat us. I just felt that way. I knew. We were going home. I know we'd win the 2 games at home. I just felt, when you believe in the team and you believe in the guys you have in there, and it's just, things happen. They beat us, whatever. And but I honestly felt we were going to win, to win the series. 4 in a row. I said it just, hoping that we would do it. But thank God it worked out the right way.
Kevin, those Bruins teams were really good, and you guys always just killed them. Like, what was it about the matchup?
I don't know. You know what? It just with Mario too, and Bork played a lot, and we used to go after him a lot. But they were a good team. We just I don't know. We just kind of matched up, and when we got rolling on downhill we had a lot of guys that could score. We had a lot of guys that could skate, and it was just I don't know. It was one of those teams when we put our mind to it and we were skating. In the small Garden, sometimes people say, "Oh, the small building's going to hurt us." That would even helped us because you could move the puck quicker, and you could in the small neutral zone, you just move it and you're in. You're gone. And there was, I don't know. We just, there wasn't too many. Like I said, the Patrick Division teams were bigger and stronger. I don't think the Bruins were big and strong enough on defense to really handle us. So most of the Patrick Division teams were they were big and strong. Everybody had big D. But I think the Bruins with Bork, they had Wesley, they had some guys, but they didn't have the size. I don't think they really compete with us.
You guys were finishing your checks like crazy in that, it wasn't just Ulf taking out Neely. It was, you guys were pounding Bork in their defense through the whole series.
Yeah, we were like Bobby Erie, Borky, Troy Loney. A lot of those, their main job was to go after Bork. We knew, in a 7-game series, he's playing 30 minutes a night out there. He's playing a lot, and we could wear at him, and every time they got the puck, we attacked them, and that was the game plan. Really was, get in his corner. If he wants to skate with it, make sure you finish him wherever he is, And I think that was a big thing back then. It's not as big anymore. I know they play through guys and they attack certain guys, but. Our whole game plan was to get the puck past the goalie because the goalies could handle the puck back then, I'm like a lot of our whole game plan was how we're going to not dump it in so the goalie gets it. So the D has to go back and get it and we can go in there and pound them a little bit, And that was a big part of our attack was get in there on the forecheck and get on their D.
I mean, you guys were such a phenomenal team. I mean, just think about how you guys, lost Mario and then Ronnie stepped in. And you guys took off and didn't lose again, in 92. Who is the guys though that you had a hard time playing against? A defenseman you had to match up against, or who was one of your toughest competitors you didn't like seeing?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of like Pilon was like Pilon, the guy who I broke my face with. He was a guy that battled with a big Indian. He was dirty too. He was big and strong though. He was like the strong like Hatchers and Iafredi. Then Langway they had. Then Jersey. Jersey had Danico and Driver. We didn't really play against Stevens and Niedermeyer. They always put Danico and Driver out against Mario's line, So it was weird. And those guys played us hard. They were tough to play against. And we had Buka Boom and Leach on the other side of the Rangers, So there wasn't any nights where you were going home and sleeping a while and say, I can't wait to play this team tonight.
I was going to say Sharks were not in your division back then. That's for sure.
It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait to go out and play these guys. It wasn't like that. There was too many big teams, and everyone was built to everybody in the Pac-12 division was built the same way. Big, strong defensemen. Like in Washington, they had Cote, Johansson. They had a lot of skill guys too. So it was every team was built from the back. They had good forwards, but the D was most teams had 3 or 4 guys that were big.
Artie, I've interviewed so many guys from the early 90s, and it's always amazing to me. Bob Johnson was only your coach for less than a year.
Yeah.
And the impact he had, I've never, to this day, I don't know that there's ever been anything like it, the way people just speak about Bob Johnson. Can you tell us just about your relationship with him and what he meant to you as a player?
Yeah, he was just so different than all the other coaches. He never was really negative about anything. As things happened, we talk about him, and we wouldn't talk about him anymore. Especially the negative part of his stuff. And he was really a stickler on just like little detail stuff, passing the puck back and forth to each other, like we're in hockey school, like 6th graders. We're sitting at the blue, your backs, when your back starts to hurt, and you're just passing it back and forth to each other, like next drill, coach, can we move? And then he say, go in circles and pass it back and forth. We do. But he had a knack to get us to do it. Like another coach would do that, would be like, are you out of your mind? We're not doing this stuff. It's like, this is, but he just had that personality that everybody followed, and he was always positive. It was, he's a special guy. There wasn't anybody like him. I've never been around a coach like him. I've never been around a personality like him. And he just never really had a bad day. He's one of those guys that, came in. Even if we could get beat 8-1, and he'd find something great on the one goal we got. He'd say, wow, what a great play you guys made on the one goal. We gave up 9. But he was a positive guy. He always found something good about something. Which is, it's hard to do at this. When you're at this, because all we're trying to do is win. There's nothing else. It's all about winning.
Did you feel like not pressure is not the word, but did you feel like you were Mara's bodyguard a little bit if anything happened? And I know you wanted to jump in, but was that part of the job, or it was just a given?
Yeah, I think it was just a given type of thing. No one, there's nothing that ever really happened. And then when Talk got there, then it was better. He was the toughest guy in the league at the time, pound for pound. So he's like, I don't have to worry about anything. He's, I got everything. It's like, and he liked that. Like I remember talking. He was a beauty. I remember we were playing Ottawa in an exhibition game, and we were veterans then. We were older, and that Dennis Vial was just coming into the league, and we line up like we're playing. We don't usually play a lot of exhibition, but we were playing this game, and Vial comes up to Talk and says, he goes to Talk, I got to fight you 3 times tonight. And I'm like, and Talk's like, what? It's an exhibition. He goes, you're gonna fight me? He goes, you're my idol. I gotta fight you 3 times. Talk actually fought him all 3 times that night. I'm like, he's out of the tree. Like I was like, I'm like. And every time he steps on the ice, Vial would step on and Talk would look at me and say, like, I got to go home again. And finally, the last time, he just kind of threw him on the bench and skated off the ice. It was like there was like 9 minutes left in the 3rd period. He said, I got enough. I'm gone. I can't do it again. But it was, he was, Talk was one of those guys that, I never really seen him lose a fight. I haven't seen him lose one. Like, maybe in Philly when he was there, I didn't see him all the time. But when he was in Pitt, if there was something going on, he could handle anybody. I've never seen. He was tough as they come.
Yeah, I mean, he leads the all-time Gordie Howe hat tricks because he actually could play and he would fight the heavyweights.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah.
what was amazing about Tocchet was.
Yeah. He'd fight the toughest guys. You know, he didn't, and and once he became scoring a little more, he didn't have to do it as much, but he made sure that there was nothing going on in the ice. I can tell you that much. It was a pretty good thing to have out there. I'll tell you.
All right, most of the memories we're talking about are good things already. So you mentioned the injury against Pilon, the very famous Islanders Game 7. If you don't get hurt in that first period, I know you're not cocky, you'd like to pat yourself on the back. Do you think that game maybe ends differently if you don't get hurt? Because it was a Game 7, anything can happen. But and you don't remember it because you were on your way to the hospital.
Yeah.
But as a 13-year-old, I was sitting in the building. I remember the energy just left the building.
Yeah.
It was deflated the rest of the game.
Yeah, that was hard. That was one of those, and it was what I took a penalty. Me and Delgado, we took a penalty 10 seconds in the game with each other. So I was coming out of the penalty box, and then when it was just like I said, 2 minutes into the game, I was coming out of the box, and I saw Pilon coming. And if you look at the hit, I really got him. But everybody looks at me hitting the ice, but no one looks at the fall. And the thing is, he never used to wear a shield, and the only reason I got knocked out is because he had something happen to his eye a couple of games before that. So he was wearing a shield, and he led with his head, and I kind of led with my head, and he hit me in the temple. So when he hit me in the temple, I couldn't put my hand. I was knocked out in the ear, So yeah, that was early in the game. It was probably that's whenever something like that happens to one of your teammates, it doesn't matter. You try to do the best you can to get through it because you want to think that everything's going to be okay and stuff like that. But who knows, Josh? You don't know, but I probably think things would be a little different, right? I would have, that was 4 minutes into the game, So it's and we dominated the game. We just couldn't score. Maybe I could put one in. I don't know. Who knows? But
I mean, when did you find out that they lost that game? You were conscious in the hospital afterwards, right?
Yeah, I was listening on the radio in the hospital. I know we tied it when we pulled the goalie. We got 2 goals, remember?
Tocchet and Francis, I think. Yeah.
They kind of scrambled, got through. I remember listening on the radio, and we tied it 3-3. Then Volek scored, and that was it. And it was kind of like I remember sitting in that hospital listening to that torturous. I knew I wasn't ever going to play the rest of the year, but it was just such a torturous. Like I thought my stomach got ripped out when he scored. I was trying to when that happens, you're always like, did he really score? Or are we still going to play? Can we maybe tie this thing up again? It's one of those things. It's like, is this thing over? Like, is it really over? And then it was, and it was kind of like, that's, I see that shot. You see that thing go in. It's like,
Still the worst loss of my life.
Yeah,
people think I love hockey now. It's like I don't love it as much as I used to because that game broke my heart so much.
That was a tough one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot I'm sure more for you, but it was a lot for my young self to deal with. Like there's Kevin Stevens on the ground, and we lost.
Or it was Game 6. We're up 4-2 going into the third period, right? So in the island, and they come out pump 4 into the third. They beat us 6-4. I remember that's the game that you can't get to Game 7 when you got these teams that. That team played us hard too. They drove Mario crazy. Kasparaitis drove him nuts. So it's kind of like, you don't want to get to a Game 7 where like Healy played the way he played, but Game 6 was the one we should have put him away in.
Yeah. And not that you can rank them because it's like ranking your kids, any team against another. But how good was that '93 team in the grand scheme of things? Because I've heard people compare them to one of the greatest teams of all time, not just Penguin teams.
Yeah, that was by far our best team. That wasn't even close. Like that was our best team through 82 games. Once we won 16, 7, whatever it was, 17 games in a row there without a tie. That's when ties were 5 minutes, right? We didn't even tie. I remember Alfie scored a goal in overtime, which he never went over the red line. So he scored a goal somehow. That was awesome when he scored. But it's that team was loaded with players. Like that was our best team. We should have won that year, and we didn't. But that team was loaded. That was a really good team.
So some people say that you guys, by doing the streak, you might have ran out of a little bit of gas. Do you buy into that, or?
I don't really buy it. I don't really think. I don't think we were really looking at. We were just kind of playing. When those streaks happen, it always, when you lose, everybody wants to say how'd they lose, right? So that's like that's the biggest thing. It's like when it does happen, you lose. It's like maybe they put too much into the streak and all this stuff. Those are they're all trying to find ways why it happened, right? And I don't think we did anything harder or anything less than I just think we went out and played, and our team was so strong that we just beat teams. We just kind of played everything. And once you get winning, you want to keep winning, but. We didn't. I don't think we looked any differently. We just played the game like when it came.
Artie, before we let you go, I should probably bring this up. It's been a terrible few days for the NHL with the passing of Johnny Gaudreau. He, of course, played at Boston College. Did you know him at all? Do you have any relationship with him?
I don't have a real to say hi to him and stuff like that. But that was gut wrenching. That was one of the worst one of the worst things I heard in a long time when I woke up Friday morning. That was gut wrenching, and it was that was so bad. I tell you, that's when I heard that one. That was a tough one to swallow all day. I'll tell you that much. It wasn't. It's not. How can this guy do that? How can a guy pass on the wrong? It's come on. It's just it's so senseless and so. It's just then you go to God, like why how does that happen? How does this happen? But that's just the way it's just so senseless nowadays. People they want to drink and do all this stuff. That's great, but there's so many ways to get around now. There's so many
right.
with Ubers and all these different transportation things. It's just like I tell my kids, it's you can't. It's so stupid. There's so many ways to get around. It's like it's all senseless stuff. And it just didn't have to happen. It's just so sad. That was like I said. I didn't know him that well, but it's just man, that was tough. I'll tell you.
Yeah. And Artie, I got to ask you about your post. Your second, stanza in your hockey career in being a scout. And I'll preface this with, none of us knew Marian Hossa was coming, but a buddy of mine was working an autograph session that you were at the night before we got Hossa. And somebody came up and said, "Are we getting Hossa?" And you said, "Ain't no way we're getting Hossa." And that's how we all felt. Nobody thought it.
Yeah.
So, like something like that, when you see a big trade go down like that, and you're on the other side, in the scouting world, does it blindside you with a Hossa or whoever it may be?
Yeah, some of those big ones like that, when you don't really see there's nothing's in the news, they just kind of whack you, they come out and you don't even they're not even talking about, a lot of teams not even talking about it, and but it's that's just the nature of the beast. I guess there's a lot of there's a lot of trade talk and that people hear, and there's a lot of trade talk that I don't even hear. I don't hear all the stuff these guys are talking about because the general manager and the manager they have their own friendship sometimes, and a lot of times we do hear stuff and they ask us about certain guys that that they might want to know about, but it's being a scout to being I watch a lot of college games and I met a lot of college rinks and I see a lot of different people, and it's been good. I think Kyle's got a good plan here. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He works very hard. He wants to keep this team. He wants to try to keep the team. We want to win now, but he knows. We've got three older guys that had great careers, and everybody gets older, right? It's just a matter. It's just what it is. It's just it's just how the beast is, and you respect those guys. They've been here 15, 16, 17, whatever a long time they've been here, and when they won 3 cups together, and now we're just trying to get in and get some type of chemistry between all the guys and try to get them on the right page and see if we can maybe sneak in. And once you sneak in, with those guys, when you sneak in and when you get talent like we have, they can win. It doesn't matter. We see 8 seeds beat ones. It doesn't really, anybody can beat anybody. You got to get in, though. It's not as easy to get in like people think. A lot of these people think it's easy to get in the playoffs. It's not,
Artie, we know you got a golf outing in the morning, and I know your golf game's surely in good form, so we're not going to keep you any longer. Last question, though. You do scout a lot. You know a lot of these younger guys on the Penguins roster and in the organization. Training camp's a couple weeks away. Do you have any tips for us? Any young guy to keep an eye on maybe that you're excited seeing?
Josh, our team is, we got some young guys that, going to get opportunity, right? They just have to take advantage of it. Like, I think, training the kid for the kid in Winnipeg is, that's McCoy. That's going to be interesting because he's
a power forward.
Yeah, he's a guy I haven't seen a lot of because we didn't, when you don't know that was one of those ones you said, what happened? Like, that just happened. That wasn't one that was talked about too much. I can tell you that much,
Right.
Forward to seeing what type of, I don't really know. I just watch him on tape. I don't really know what type of player he is, but it's going to be fun to watch him and see how it all unfolds because we want guys to play that are young. We want guys to come in and take jobs, right? They need to come in and take them. Nothing's going to be given to them. We all know how hard it is to play in this league, and but if you get in there and you have a good camp and you play and you get an opportunity, you just go with it. But it's I'm looking forward to seeing him. I don't really know a lot about him, so I'm looking forward to see how he does. Because I think in the scheme of things, we'd love to see him make it, right?
Absolutely. Kevin, I will let you go. This has been an absolute honor and a pleasure for me. I thank you for your time, and I can only imagine watching you crush a golf ball. It just must be awesome. So you hit him straight, sir, and thank you for everything. Thank you for everything. That's all I can say. Yeah. Everything.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, Josh. It's always good to see you, but I see you around a lot, so I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
You got it, Artie. Thank you.
Thanks, Artie.
Thanks, boys.
I'm speechless. I mean, I got to talk to Kevin Stevens.
Yeah, that was great. He there's no bullshit with him. He just whatever's on his mind, he just says it. It's great. There's just such of a unique, honest approach. There's no cliches with him. He just says it how it is.
He's good for a quote. That's I'm glad he went there whenever I brought up the guarantee because I was like, man, this guy can talk. I mean,
his bobblehead should be him in the Star Trek blue sweatshirt standing there giving guarantees. I always love that his post game attire.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite parts of that story, in fact. Of course, I was far too young to be covering those teams. Unfortunately, I wish I could have covered them. But when he made that guarantee, he apparently was walking around to all the reporters just to let them know, hey, I just made a guarantee. Hey, make sure you get this in your article too. And Dave Molinari told me the story. He's like, well, I didn't get to him at first. And he was just talking with waves of reporters. He goes, Davey, you got this story. We're going to win 4 straight. Make sure you put it in the Post-Gazette. That's just how he was.
That was phenomenal. I mean, and Joe, I'm so glad you said what you said because that's how I felt. It's just for guys like us, I don't want to wax too much, poetic with all of them, but the guys from that era, but they changed. The only time I ever shook Mario's hand and talked to him, not asking for an autograph, anything, I said, "You changed my life, for the better. Everything, hockey was the biggest discipline in my life, and got me on the path where I'm at today." And thank you. Well, and the teams were.
No. I didn't mean to catch you. I'm sorry. No. I mean that Mario's Mario, but when Kevin Stevens came, it's like, wow, we have a power forward, a guy that's going to kick ass. He's one of ours. He's drafted by us. It was just everything just kind of changed. It was like him, and then we talked about how Coffee came over, but Stevens, Recchi, and Coffee, it changed everything, and it's so great. I didn't want to dwell on the negative, but man, I took that 93 loss very hard. Cheers ended that weekend too, or the next week. And I remember sitting with a guy I worked with, and he goes, he was way older than me. He goes, life's going to go on, Joey. No cheers, no three-peat. What's happening?
Artie was in great form that whole interview. The best part of the interview may have been when he said, Joe, I like you already. I don't know why that made me laugh so much.
It's so great. It's so awesome. But
and listen, I think Artie's the perfect example, the perfect illustration. Yes, those early 90s teams were great and they were entertaining, but they were also, especially for Penguins fans, so likable. Such massive, larger than life personalities. I think for people, my age or older, yes, they love the Crosby teams, the 09, 16, 17 teams. They're great. But there's something special about those 90s teams. And maybe it was just the era. Those guys could party and they liked to talk about it. They weren't shy about it. And they played the game in such of an entertaining manner. You almost had the feeling they'd rather lose 7-6 than win 2-1. Like they wanted to entertain as well. And as a young person growing up watching that team, I was so spoiled. I will never enjoy watching another hockey team more the rest of my life, I guarantee you.
Yeah, I don't think it's the money that the guys make today, and no one is still more as personable as hockey players and is cool to see and in the community. And our team nowadays, they're absolute gems as human beings.
Yeah.
But there is something about pre-cell phones when all those guys could be down the south side or over the north side or wherever, and you could just hang out with them. And they didn't work, they were having fun. They were men of the people.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, no,
it was a different time.
Artie talks about that. I mean, I've gotten to know him really well over the last decade, just as everyone could tell who listened, just the greatest guy ever. And he would tell me, 90, 91, 92, he said, we were making good money. Don't get me wrong. But he says, not like these guys today. He said that the people of Pittsburgh were our drinking buddies. He said, we would be out at the ground round having drinks after games in Mount Lebanon like that. Those were our people. And there was and I think the city recognized that. And there was a bond there. The early 90s, those two playoff runs, I mean, those are really what made Pittsburgh a hockey town, in my opinion, the way it has become. Yes, it got even bigger in the Crosby years, but that's really, I think, when the foundation was laid. The Penguins have been a really big deal in this town ever since then.
And that's why I say any city that once they get a taste of playoff hockey, win a round or two, that's it. Then it becomes a hockey town.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
All the Sun Belt teams, all they have to do just get a little and look at the ones that do, and look how much they become meccas of hockey. You got your Tampas, you got your Nashvilles. It's like instantly Vegas.
Yep.
Oh,
and that's probably what was Phoenix's, or Arizona's biggest problem is they never went on a run. They made the conference final one time. They never had that. They never had that true playoff run. So,
and I always say, like, if Columbus would ever go on a playoff run, that city is just waiting to become a big time hockey town. It really is, because they only have Ohio State. They don't have anything else there. They want to be a great hockey town, but without that playoff run, that just changes everything. It really does.
The fact that they're in the Metro, I don't want them to do well, but they don't have Tortorella anymore, so I don't want to throw dirt on them. But they're a great fan base for never being close to being a good team.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they've won one series in 25 years. I mean,
yeah, it's no good. I will say this because there's so many transplants in Phoenix. In Phoenix would be a great hockey town. It's literally been where they've put their arenas.
Yes.
They still never figured out to put one in Scottsdale or one by Arizona State.
That's where all the people live. Yes.
Yeah. it's like,
drive to Glendale. That's like if you live out by Pittsburgh International Airport, drive to Greensburg to see the Penguins play and see how that goes.
Yeah, I was going to say the airport's like half as far away as where that arena is.
Yeah, I mean it's No, you're absolutely right. But that was our first ever guest on the show. I think that was a big one. I mean, we all rank Artie very high on the list, and he was in good form. We're going to be very challenged to find a guest as entertaining as him. We'll try, but it will not be easy.
Definitely tap of the stick to Josh Yowie for making that happen.
Yeah,
my pleasure. And now Artie's, and it's funny, I've been covering the Penguins 15 years, and so I'm around all these guys, and it's just kind of second nature. Hey, Sid, how you doing? Whatever. But like for me, it was the early '90s guys. Like, oh God, like there's Kevin Stevens, there's Phil Borg. Like when I first started. Then I've been so fortunate to get to know these guys. Now, admittedly, I don't know Barrasso, and we all know what his reputation is. But these guys, they are the nicest guys. They really are. And I mean, they are so close. I'll see, Borky will always be on the phone in between periods. The Penguins will be down 3-0. I said, who are you texting? He goes, Artie's pissed off about this, what he saw in the penalty kill, and I noticed it too. So that's great. They still get so worked up and still love the Penguins so much.
Yeah, the old 2 Niners been nothing but fabulous to me. And the book you guys wrote together is fantastic, and I want nothing but the best for him. But I will say I miss him not being on the post game. In my victory laps and my loser loops with my dogs, that was always the best because he would feel exactly the way I felt. Where I would, if he was in the locker room, I would run through a brick wall for Borky after a game when we lose 3-0. Even in December, I'm going to kill somebody.
If the modern day Penguins all wanted to win as much as Phil still wants them to win, now he bleeds black and gold. He might be from Boston like Artie, but I'm telling you that they both bleed black and gold to this day. There's no doubt about it.
You can feel it in his radio broadcast. That's why I know he's going to TV now. I think he's full-time TV, right? For this season.
No, I think he's still doing both. I don't know. I don't know if there's been an official announcement. I think they're both doing. He's doing both still.
It's so tough because I love them. I love Ruppert. Ruppert does such a great job.
Mm-hmm. I like all those guys. I like Colby. It's tough, but
Colby, I forgot about.
They're all great. So I don't like picking one over the other. But Borky's so good, and he is just so fearless. He'll take shots at players. He just says it how it is. I mean, he's he is so hard on certain players, but I think he's fair though. If they do something great, he'll say it. And that's what you should want in a broadcaster. There's not enough of that, in my opinion.
When he uses their full name, that's it's either a good or a bad thing. Sometimes he'll use like Matthew instead of Matt or whatever. Like he'll use their full name, and if it could have been a good play, but if it wasn't a good play, you're in Borky's doghouse. What are you doing?
I will say this. I just did my Atlantic and my Metro Division previews and my columns. I picked the Penguins higher than I thought I was going to. And I don't know if it was a McGroarty trade fired me up a little bit, or I took it, or maybe I just looked at the other teams a little differently. But I moved them up a little higher than I thought I was going to have them. Not that much further. I'm not predicting, playoffs, but playoffs. But
I was actually thinking about that today, Joe. That it might not be bad. I mean, I don't think they're going to be a disaster.
No,
I just don't know that they can be a whole lot better than what we saw last year. I think it's a tough ask, but stranger things have happened. One thing in their favor, the Metro's not good.
It's terrible.
I mean, those three teams. I think Jersey's really good. Carolina and the Rangers are probably still playoff teams, though I don't know that either one will be as good. But the Islanders might stink. Washington, average. Columbus stinks. Philly might stink. Like that's not a good division at all.
I think the Islanders' goaltending is going to help them a lot. I think that really helps them. But if you look at just as we have for 12 months, just a little bit better of a power play, and just Jarry not sucking half the time. And it's a whole different season. If you look at that, it's kind of the glass half full. If you look at the glass half empty, everyone's a little older, and they didn't really go out and get anybody, and we lost Snake. But like I said, I have positivity going in, whereas 3 weeks ago I was not as positive.
I like that about you. No, it's who knows? It's not like they don't have talent. They still have talent. Might be another year older, but they're still talent. And what they need, in my opinion, is a couple of these young guys, whether it's McGroarty or one of the guys they got in the Gensel trade, whatever. If they could just have maybe Puustinen, scores 15 or 20 goals. If you get a couple of these young guys to make a real difference, that would be a really big deal for them. I don't think there's any question, and I'm very interested to see when training camp starts, because knowing Sidney Crosby and Mike Sullivan the way we do, they are so obsessed with winning and so frustrated, I think, by what has happened the last couple of years. I'm very curious to see how they come out of the gates, and it's a really hard schedule in October for the Penguins, by the way. I mean, they've just in October alone at Toronto, at Detroit, at Edmonton, Vancouver, home to the Rangers, at Winnipeg. It's a brutal schedule in the first month, so that will get our attention.
Yeah, and I already kind of alluded to this, but I even said, I was thinking it last year whenever we almost snuck into the playoffs. Don't let Sidney Crosby get to the conference final, because Sidney Crosby has that champion, the all-time great champion gene that Tom Brady has. Like in the halfway through the first quarter of Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Super Bowl, you're like, there's no way he's losing this game. You could tell. And like that's Sid. Like if Sid gets another whiff of a championship, it's over. So maybe a couple things go right. It's kind of like when we were doing our Steelers preview, where I said like something has to come out of nowhere that we're not expecting, and maybe it is a couple of those young guys. Maybe one of these young goalies really surprises and comes up and really, because in my opinion we can't go anywhere until Jari's gone. They're completely replaced. I don't see him making a run. So
I was maybe the only, not disappointing, but I wish we didn't get as many career 3.5 liners, and just let sink or swim with these Russian guys I can't spell or pronounce. Like just throw that bingo ball around a little bit more than saying, we know what Hayes can do. We know what Beauvillier can do. I used to like Beauvillier a lot when he was on the island, but we know what they can do. What let's see some young guys that we never heard of playing some hockey. That's kind of my only, but I guess Dubas has to cover himself and they're actually professionals, because I guess Sid wants to know who he walks in the locker room and sees.
No, Sullivan takes a lot of Sully takes a lot of abuse from the fan base. He doesn't like young players. And my contention has always been he hasn't had good young players in years. What do you want him to do?
You're right.
Like, I think he would love to have a wave of young players that he could insert into the lineup. I think the fan base is off on that, but now there is some talent coming. And I think Kyle Dubas very much is interested in getting some young people into the lineup. Yes, I realize he's still brought in some veterans, but I don't think he's against the idea of a couple of young guys surprising and making the roster at some point, if not October. So I don't know. It's actually an interesting training camp in some ways. We don't know who's going to be on this team on opening night. Usually we do. Maybe that's a good thing for this point.
I tell you what, I cannot wait. I'm done reading books. I watch college football from game day, 8 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night. I watched like 10 games. I was so fired up. Now we got the NFL this week. It is time for sports again, everybody. I'm really, it's the best.
Joe, I should have texted you when I was watching the Arizona. Who did they play? Arizona versus whoever. It was like 1 o'clock my time. And I was like, "What am I doing watching this game?" Like,
I was watching that game. They played Hawaii, right? My wife was like, "My wife said Hawaii." I'm like, "No, that's Arizona." Yeah, I literally watched from game day the whole way through. Now I got to say, I can't focus. I know buddies of mine have 3 TVs going or split screens. I watch one game at a time. I can't focus on more than I can't do it. So
the best
the Miami quarterback was phenomenal. Florida, they stink. Ooh. Notre Dame shocked me. Notre Dame shocked me.
Yeah, they actually look pretty good. Usually when they're in the marquee game, they choke and get exposed. But
they usually don't have the athletes to compete against guys from Texas. I mean, Texas A&M's got athletes. They won that. That was incredible. I think Georgia's quarterback, he was like, he wants to win the Heisman. It's like, buddy, you didn't look good. I'm sorry.
No.
I think they're a little down. They'll still make the playoffs probably. They will make it. But I'll tell you, the other team that showed up to me was USC. All my Michigan buddies are scared now because USC.
Yeah, they're the one guy made 2 unbelievable catches.
I mean, can he just play for the Steelers Sunday? I mean, is that possible? I mean,
they need a receiver. Why not? Yeah.
I mean, he was incredible. And then last year, USC, I mean, they had the Caleb kid, but they'd give up 60 points a game and lose 58. They had some linebackers that were laying the wood last night. Guys like 6 yards downfield, like they ran into a brick wall. I'm like, these guys are hitting. I'm so fired up. Football, hockey's back. Thank God. The summer of discontent is over, everybody.
Baseball season's almost over. It's perfect, right?
It was over. That's like April Fool's, April 1st. Hey, Pittsburgh has a professional baseball team. April Fool's. It just takes a couple months to figure out the joke.
That's right.
Yeah. And sadly, like you said, your Michigan friends, this doesn't look like I was
Texas this week, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have a gentleman's friend. I have a friendly bet with a Texas fan where he's going to send smoked sausage if Michigan wins, and I'm going to send him. I might as well just start packing up whatever I'm sending. I'm like a diehard Michigan. I have Michigan all over the place here, and I feel sick to my stomach watching that quarterback play. That's I don't know if you guys watched that game at all, but it was when you have a senior walk-on as your starting quarterback, it's not a good sign.
Well,
You don't see that with national championship teams very often. The defending champs with a walk-on. That's interesting.
Well, there's a couple of things. So Fresno always plays a spoiler. Week 1 is always their Super Bowl. And the second thing is, you guys, I hate to say we, but Michigan, you won everything last year.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to enjoy it. But third, the quarterback for Michigan about 5 years ago was terrible. He missed so many wide open tight ends. He was incredibly bad. And then I have a buddy who works for the NFLPA, and they used to run an all-star game, kind of like the number 3 ranked for prospects, for the draft. Yeah. And I walked in the locker room and I saw the kid from Michigan was on the team. I'm like, this guy, he stinks. And Willis's head almost exploded because the kid was right behind me.
Was this wasn't Chad Henne?
No, it wasn't Chad Henne. No, it was like 3 or 4 years. It was whenever it was like in the era of the horrible 4th down call when Ohio State was a foot and a half before the sticks. The guy just goes first down. It's like, that's the biggest ripoff I've ever seen. It was that era.
Yeah,
that kid era. couldn't hit the side of a barn.
Harbaugh era.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. That Alex Orji, he's like an athlete, and he just literally can't hit the broadside of a barn. And a business partner of mine is a big Michigan alum, like donor. She's actually taking me to the game against Arkansas State and taking me down on the field and like going in the alumni tent. Like, I'm just gonna be in 2 weeks. I'm gonna be in Michigan heaven. And he's texting me before the game. And he goes, yeah, Orji's not taking first team reps. This isn't good. Because we're like, if your heir apparent can't beat out a walk on. And by the way, we got to give a shout out to the RMU guy that made the interception of college football history. Like, did you see that, Joe? The one-handed spinorama interception that the kid from RMU made?
No, RMU, Robert Morris.
Yes. Yeah, Robert Morris. It is. I'm not kidding. One of the best catches you'll ever see.
Where do they play Donnie Iris Field?
Is it Joe Walton Field? I think it's Joe Walton Field, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but yeah.
No, that was incredible. No, I'm in a good mood just because football's back and hockey's around the corner. Like July and August are really hard for sports fans. Like there's not much going on.
No more summer programming, baby.
No.
This is hockey season. But well, that'll do it for this week. Special thank you to Kevin Stevens, Artie, the RT Express, for coming on, and again, stick tap to Josh for making that happen. And thank you guys all for listening, and we'll see if we get some more special guests. But we're in hockey season. We're ready to go. So you guys keep it tuned here. Check back in next week, and we'll hear everything that's going to go on leading up to Penguins training camp. We'll talk to you guys later.